Amazing. And tonight we have with us two of the Freedom Riders that took the Albany Freedom Ride from Atlanta to Albany and were arrested in December 1961 when they arrived here in Albany at the Union Station. And that's why we're here tonight, because this is the scene of the crime. This was the site of the arrest. And it's important for us to honor that. This is in a sense kind of like Old Mount Zion Church, sacred space because of what happened here in the Civil Rights Movement. And that's one of the reasons why we're having this little tour afterwards. We want to show you the terminal and point out the architecture of segregation so you understand what Jim Crow is all about in terms of the physical landscape and so on.
Thank you very much, Joan. I do not have that with all of my rat packing. But what I do have, before I go into it, is a letter from Joan, which I don't think she remembers, and it's Dear Lenora, Norma, Bertha, and 3 unidentified friends. Greetings. Lenora, why should I bail out for my safety? I had asked that she come out because I was not certain what was happening to her, and she realized that she was by herself, whereas we had each other. And the fear of a white woman being in jail by herself with other prisoners and having no idea what could possibly happen, I felt for her safety she should come out. Well, she was highly indignant about it and wrote me this note. Lenora, why should I be bailed out for my safety? Is there reason to question my safety here? I've been asleep for almost my entire time. What has occurred since we arrived? Of course, the fact outside, this light is not to my favor. Of course, the poster outside in a hall is a hellboy. Over my door is written, "Welcome to Crossroads Hotel." My blankets are two and clean. We didn't have it. Where are the boys? Are they okay? This is a time for conclusively knowing that I sing with the heart, but not with the talent. When I add my soul sound waves, which aren't quite like Beth's, similar to y'all's, overlook the off-key, but, and etc., the mistake. Are we not on a hunger strike? Oh yes, Lenora, the number of the address I want for you, I guess for you, I gave to you was for Faye Powell. And in addition to that, she talked about the notes that she read there. Believe it or not, this is the book, in fact, that I had 49 years ago that I sent the notes on that sure. I would like to take you back to December the 10th, 1961, when 9 Freedom Riders rode the train to Albany, Georgia, to see if the Interstate Commerce Commission ruling desegregating interstate transportation was being observed. The word was that the Georgia Central Railroad was not observing the ICC ruling and was still segregated. The trip to Albany was to test the ICC ruling and to file a federal suit if the law was not being followed. It did not work out that way, and what transpired made history. On December the 10th, 1961, 9 persons under the aegis of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee boarded the train to Albany. These persons were James Foreman, who was the executive director of SNCC, Robert Zellner, who was the Student Nonviolent Field Secretary, who was born in Alabama and whose grandfather was a member of the Ku Klux Klan, and who George Wallace, then governor of Alabama, had a death warrant on his head for his betrayal to the white race. Per Larsen, writer from Denmark, who was writing on the movement, Tom Hayden, Student Democratic Committee member who was also writing an article on the movement. Casey Hayden, who worked then with the YWCA and was the designated observer for the ride. Bernard Lee from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Norma Collins, who was the office manager for SNCC in Atlanta. Joan Browning, who was at Emory University employee, and myself, who was a second-year student at the Atlanta University School of Social Work. The plan was for all of us to sit together in the white car and ride to Albany. The conductor separated us immediately. Bob Zellner repeatedly tried to sit with the African-American group and was sent back to the car each time. Finally, the conductor, who was very nervous with all this going back and forward, told Bob, "Please, I'm getting off at the next stop. I want to go home and to see my family. Please, just go back, do whatever you want, just let me get off." And Bob looked at him, and if any of you know Bob, he said, "Yes, sir. Of course, sir." And he went back, and 2 seconds later, he was back in the car. The man got off, the conductor got off, and we went on to Albany. Another conductor did not get on. When we arrived in Albany, Georgia, we were met with the strains of "We Shall Overcome" by approximately 200 or more students. There was a SNCC office in Albany that was headed by Charles Sherrod, who's here with us, and Charles Jones. They were wide of our coming, and somehow the press got the word. In the crowd of students was a white man that, as I remembered, who probably worked for the city, taking pictures of us from different angles. He would go this way, and he would go that way, and he would come around the back. And we just sort of like, you know, because he was jumping in and out, in and out. We paid him no mind, but I went to the white waiting room, to the ticket agent, as had been planned, to ask when the next train was leaving for Florida, and to secure a schedule, and sat down while we were waiting, testing. I was in the white waiting room. When the rest of the group came in, we sat down, and then we left. As we left the waiting room, a car came through the crowd, and Pritchard got out of the car, Laurie Pritchard, and identified himself as the chief of police. He told us to move, and which we did. He then picked out of the group, all of us, called the paddy wagon, which came like magic, and put us in, told us to get in. Then he plucked out Bertha Gober. And Bertha had been dismissed from Albany State University for her actions in being involved in the movement over Thanksgiving weekend. She was also one of the original Freedom Singers. Charles Jones was arrested, and Charles Sherrod, weren't you arrested? No, okay, Charles, sorry? Okay. Was arrested, Charles Jones was arrested, and another student, Willie Mae Henderson, who happened to be standing close to him. James Foreman asked Chief Pritchard what we were being arrested for, and his response was, "I don't know yet." Well, we were hauled off in the paddy wagon and taken to the Albany City Jail. My recollection is that it was a horrible place, filthy to the point of being unbearable, roaches everywhere, and a stench beyond belief. I do not believe that it had been cleaned since its inception. There was a dirty mattress and a commode in the cell. My thought was I could easily go on a hunger strike because I could not envision myself eating or drinking anything in that place. We were fingerprinted and allowed one phone call. James Foreman instructed each of us to call a different city. I was instructed to call Chicago and only had chance to say, "In Albany, Georgia, send Freedom Riders, and was cut off immediately. Somehow, I think it was Jim that called the New York office, and someone called someone in Albany. It was probably Attorney C.B. King. I'd been ill with a throat problem, which many years later was diagnosed as a partial paralysis of my larynx. The doctor had made me promise not to go to jail anymore when I was in Atlanta, and I assured him that I would not do this. James Foreman felt I should come out for health reasons. I resisted, feeling that with the trial being the next day, I could make it and not come out on a $400 bond, which I felt was unjust and just downright ridiculous. When they came to bail James out to speak with the lawyer, I was still resisting and saying I wasn't going, and at that point fainted in the middle of the sentence, and all I could hear was Jim say, "Take her out." And so I came through, and he told Attorney King that I would give him the report of what had happened. I came through and would not go, and I said, "But I'm okay, I can stay." And I was told I was out, the bail had been paid, and that was that. Needless to say, I was an unhappy camper and gave C.B. King a very hard time. He explained to me that he needed me to explain what had gone on and that the next day he would ask for a continuance. I calmed down and gave him an explicit report. I must add that we became very close friends, and he was someone I grew to love and admire along with his entire family.